Hello again. Today we're going to demonstrate the supplier module. Okay, so we're going to log in as admin UK, and we're going to log in over the local area network, not the internet. Okay, so sign in. Okay, so going to go into the supplier module. Okay, so we've got the same menu structure as the other modules. New supplier, new requisition, new purchase order. Find a supplier, find a purchase order, and our tool section is obviously payments control, how to payment runs, um, and batch document printing like purchase orders. Okay, but we'll um, the layout of the module is exactly the same as the others. We've got a workflow menu, so we can actually say new supplier, or we can go new supplier over here, or we can do new purchase order over here. Okay, so let's let's do a new purchase order. When we do a purchase order, we can actually convert available requisitions if we have any. But what I'll do is I'll just pick on this particular supplier, Braxis PLC. Okay. Okay, so the purchase order form comes up. We've got a date, which is today's date. We've got a reference, whatever the reference you want to use, like the supplier reference, like they give us a reference for the order. What are our terms? The supplier defaults in from the supplier account. We've got another reference if we need it. If this was a foreign currency supplier, we could change the actual currency exchange rate. Okay, so let's go down to the actual items we're going to order. If I open up the list, it actually gives me a list of stock items with the description, the supplier cost, the last cost, the standard cost in the supplier currency. Okay, so I'm going to click on that one and say OK. And I'm going to say I wanted 10 of those and I want 20 of those. And I can also do free text items just like I can in the customer order and invoice, just by saying, right, I want 10 of those each. And I can type whatever I want to, labor to fit or something like that. It automatically puts the tax code to do with the actual supplier in. So obviously Abraxas there is obviously 0 rated for whatever reason. So there's 100. Okay, so we've done a purchase order here. The total is £1,400. The freight is 10. If I want to override it, I can tick the box and say we're going to charge them they're going to charge me £5. Okay. I can decide which warehouse I want it shipped to. Obviously, it defaults to the main warehouse, but you can pick another warehouse easily. And that's, you've got notes where you can just type specific information about the actual supplier, this particular purchase order. I can save it. I can save and close. I can here and now print the actual purchase order document. And if I wanted to print it here and now, it brings up the normal print dialog. I can decide to lowest cost route it. So if I've got an email address for that particular supplier, it'll use it. If I haven't, it'll use the fax number. If I haven't got a fax number, it'll print it. So if I go to the print preview, it'll bring up what the actual purchase order is going to look like. All the stationery layouts are totally amendable by you. When you set up your company, if you put your logo in, it'll automatically put your logo across all the documents, all the reports, and all the actual documents like orders and invoices. Okay. Okay, so there's our purchase order. We've done it. We've printed it off, and at some point we should get some goods coming through the door. So we've got a list of available purchase orders. I can also do goods received just against active suppliers without having to do purchase orders. Okay, so there's our purchase order there. I'm going to click on that one. If I had multiple purchase orders for the same supplier, I could tick them all and consolidate a GRN. Okay, so I'll say OK. So now what I'm going to produce is an actual goods received GRN. Okay, so what it's saying here is, did you receive 10 and 20 and 100? If I wanted to, I could zero the actual all the quantities. But let's say I put 5 in here. So I've only received 5. Okay, what it's saying to me here is the quantity is less than the original outstanding quantity. Do you want to change the original purchase order down? Okay, so it means that I don't have to, if I had 10 on order and only got 5 delivery, if I'm not going to get another delivery, then I could say yes here, and it'll just change the order quantity to 5, so it won't keep track of 5 outstanding. But if I say no, then it will keep track of the 5 outstanding. Okay, so I can save that goods received. I can print off a goods received note. And if I wanted to, I could actually receive the bill at the same time as doing this GRM. But the normal order of events is you do your purchase orders, the goods come in, and then obviously a day or two later the actual purchase invoice comes in. So I'll say save and close. One point about this system is if I go to find goods received, okay, and the goods received that we just done, we post an accrual journal as we do GRNs. Okay, so what this means is that we're actually posting to an accrued creditors control the amount of money, and we're posting to the inventory control at the point of goods received. So in theory, that our inventory control account should always balance to our stock valuation report. And you can see that the journal is made up of the actual GRN, the supplier, the stock item, the quantity, and the unconfirmed cost price. Okay. Okay. All right. So now the invoice comes in, or the bill. We can do bills against just active suppliers, yeah, or we can actually do purchase invoices or bills against actual GRNs. So if I click on that one there and say OK, here's our actual bill. Okay, so what it's asking for is what is the supplier invoice number? What is the supplier invoice date and what is the supplier invoice number? Okay, so if I just type in 123, it'll do it. If that invoice already exists on that supplier transaction history, then it will actually prompt you and say this one already exists. You must have already entered it. What's going on? The second reference is already entered for you, and it kind of lists the GRN, the purchase order number, and the other reference that you entered, the delivery note reference. Okay, so it's saying the total net amount is this. So you should have the invoice in front of you, and it should say 1355 on there, zero tax or whatever, or VAT, and that's the gross amount. Okay, these are all the items for this GRN. If there was multiple GRNs, they would all be here. Okay, so at this point, I can change, okay, the quantity that they invoiced me. So let's say they delivered 5, but they invoiced me for 10. Okay, now you can cope with this, okay, because what you can do is you can process their invoice with the 10, and you can decide to create the debit note there and then for the 5 that you've not had, okay, or what you can do is it'll post the additional 5 to an over invoice control account. Okay, so when you actually then get the credit note off the supplier, you can actually net it off against that over invoice control account. The other area, okay, that you might get a query is the confirmed cost. So obviously we expect to pay £10 each for these 5, okay, but if let's say they invoice me 11, okay, now it's up to me whether I actually accept this, okay, and just save and close or save and post or whatever, and then that will actually put them in at £11 each. Now, at this point right now, before I save this bill, if I create the debit note, okay, it will put them in at £10 each, affecting the average cost at £10, okay, and the debit note, okay, will be raised for £1 each, okay. So if I go create debit note, okay, yeah. So what's happened here is I've actually changed the detail amount, and the values are now different from the actual net amount on the invoice. In theory, what you should have done was looked at the invoice and typed in the actual amounts and balanced back to those amounts. But obviously, I'm cheating a little bit here, so I'm just going to click that so it kind of balances out. So I'm going to create the debit note, and what you'll see is it will automatically come up with any quantity differences if we've been over invoiced, invoiced for more than we've actually had delivered, and any cost differences, and it goes, the quantity times the difference. So it's saying there's £5 difference here. Do you want to create a debit note? A lot of the problem a lot of accounting departments have is that they have a lot of purchase invoices coming through the door, and if they don't deal with the query, they can't process the invoice. They end up with lots of stacks of invoices that they can't, they've got queries on. What this allows you to do is process the invoice at the £11. Okay, so that goes onto the supplier ledger. But then it also allows you to process a debit note right now. Okay, so I'm going to create the debit note, and that will go on as a transaction on the supplier account. Okay, so then you can see right there, yeah, that was the bill at the higher amount, and then there's the actual debit note at the other amount, and it actually tells you in the notes, yeah, that the original cost was 10, the invoice cost was 11. Okay, that's why I want the debit. That's why I want the £1. And obviously, if you print that off, that's a document you can send to your supplier to say, you need to credit note me, yeah, but I'm not actually raising a debit note because I agreed to pay you, £10 each, but you invoiced me £11 each. Okay, and that's it. So what you've been able to do is, instead of end up with a stack of purchase invoices on the desk, you've been able to process them and process any kind of debit notes that you want, to get your credits, and not have stacks of paperwork lying around. It's up to you, obviously, whether you do that or not. You don't have to raise a debit note. You can just put them on at 11 and accept it, and that's it. Okay, creating returns to suppliers. That's a feature of the advanced version. Okay, but you can still obviously enter credit notes for any particular supplier. Okay, so you can enter, whatever it is, the invoice number, however much it is, and this is how you process a credit note. Okay. Okay, supplier payment. This is an individual supplier payment, where you pay, you're writing out one check, let's say. Down here we have the date. There's the actual check number. If you tick this little box here, it'll put the next check number in that it thinks that you should be using, or otherwise you can overtype it. How much? Well, let's say we're going to pay £100. Okay, so I'll say save, and it's exactly like the customer receipt section. If you go to the allocate, you can see any debit notes or any other outstanding payments you might have outstanding, and obviously these are all the outstanding bills and invoices. So if I click on that, you can actually see that what's happened is it's allocated the 100 against that outstanding amount of 1360. So there's 1,260 outstanding on the account. So I'll save that, and it saves the allocation. And again, as mentioned in the customer demonstration, we only actually take loss or gains from a foreign currency point of view at the point of allocation. Okay. Okay, so to find a supplier, let's look at this supplier account. This is exactly like the customer account, effectively. You've got contacts, notes, activities, emails, all the different kind of things that can happen to a supplier. And if you look at a particular contact record, okay, the notes, activities, emails, and faxes are contact centered. So they're basically just to do with that particular contact. We have a setup tab, which means that we can decide on the currency, the default payment terms, shipping methods, and how we actually pay this supplier usually. Okay, so you can decide whether you pay them by check remittance, check only, e-banking, remittance. Obviously, this is e-banking. This is where we type in their sort code, account number, and all that sort of stuff. And if we have a factor company, so if this supplier factors their debt, yeah, then we can actually put a factor company in, and then when we do a payment run, yeah, it will actually pay the factor company rather than the actual supplier. So if we did a check run, it would put the factor company's name on the actual check, yeah, and their address on it. If we did a BACS run, then obviously it would put the factor company's bank details in rather than the actual suppliers. Okay, so let's look at products. This is very similar to the customer setup for pricing. So for every supplier we hold the supplier part code and the supplier description for all our stock items. We also can set up individual pricing from each supplier. So for example, we would specify here the items that we usually buy off this supplier, the usual lead time, and the usual cost price. And if we actually did get quantity breaks off them based on units of measure, we could actually drill down and actually put those in as well. So it's as complicated or as simple as you want it to be. Analysis in supplier is what you're trading, your monthly trading with them, and your turnover and transactions. You can see all the requisitions, you can see purchase orders, goods received, and obviously we've got a ledger view which shows it all. And we can see that basically there's there's been £100. If I can say all, you can see that there's that payment we put on, and there's zero outstanding on it. So if I double click on that, it'll actually give me the allocation that we just did just now. Okay. We can also attach documents to any payment, any bill. So let's say we scan it or whatever it is, we can actually hold that against the actual records. And recent purchases, what have we been buying off this supplier? So we can actually see. And what do we owe this supplier? Okay. For a full demonstration of these, you're probably better off looking at the customer demo because that actually shows this in detail. Okay, so payment control. This shows all the outstanding balances or an age creditor view. So we can see all the suppliers we owe money to by due date. So we can see what's due, what's not due. We can see it by document day, and we can change the actual brackets. So we can say, oh, instead of 7-day intervals, I want to see it by 14-day intervals. Okay. All right, supplier payments. This is if you want to do a payment run. So obviously we saw doing an individual supplier payment, like writing a check or whatever, yeah, an individual supplier payment. But if you wanted to create a payment run, we want to pay multiple suppliers at once, yeah, we could use this routine here. So create payment, create a payment run. Which bank account do I want to use? So effectively, if I pick this Sterling bank account, yeah, it's only going to pick up suppliers that we actually pay in sterling, okay? So if I go to next, okay, it's already telling me that I've got one set up. Yeah. Do I want to kind of delete it and override it? I'm going to say yes. I want to create a new payment run. So it's now listing all the suppliers that are in sterling. Okay. So let me just expand this out so we can see it in more detail. Oops. Whoops, wrong one. Okay. Okay, so I've only got one bill outstanding on ABC. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm going to pay that. Okay, so it's £85.34. I'm going to pay that one, okay, and that one. Now, there's actually settlement, the terms were actually settlement discount. The settlement discount on this particular transaction was £4. Okay, now, if I was within terms, it would have automatically put the £4 in for me. But if I'm a cheeky person, okay, I could actually tick that box and take the £4 settlement discount anyway. So what I can see is that I'm going to pay that amount of money and I'm going to take £4 in settlement discount. Okay, so I've decided to pay that invoice and those two invoices on that account there. Okay, I could, if I wanted to, print a suggested payments report, or I can just ignore it. Okay, right, so I've created the suggested payments report. I can now amend it if I wanted to. Okay, and now I can process it. Okay, so now I process these based on the types of payment that I do. So if this is a check and remittance, okay, it's picked out the suppliers that I pay by check and remittance. Okay, so if I go process payments, okay, I can put in a start check number, or I can say get the next check number and then assign it to all the payments I've got to make. And then I can go process and print, and it'll actually bring up the check layout. And this is only one supplier, so basically it's just going to produce one remittance and one check layout down there. Okay? All right, now, based on that actually successfully printing, okay, it says, did they print correctly? Now, if I say yes, it's going to post the payment and complete it. If I say no, then it'll give me the opportunity to assign new check numbers, yeah, just in case the printer jammed or whatever it might be, yeah, when I was actually trying to print them. So if I say yes, that's it, it's done. Okay? Now, if I go to process payment run again and actually pick a different payment type, hopefully the banking one, nope. Remittance only, no. Check only, there you go. So there's that other one we picked for the £85.34. And then when I process payments on this one, it would just be the actual check layout rather than the remittance and check. There you go, just a standard check layout. Okay. Now, what we did, so close, yep. Because people have lots and lots of different bank accounts, okay, and different, some people might bank with Barclays, some with NatWest, some with HSBC or whatever, and they want to use their bank software to actually pay suppliers, okay. What we did was, in banking, we allowed you against each bank account, okay, to actually specify a CSV file layout, okay. So for example, this bank account here, we allowed you to specify, okay, what order you want the actual fields to be in. Okay, so if I kind of say I want to save this file as bank payments, okay, and I want the bank account number of the supplier, the sort code, the address, the amount, the currency code, the currency, okay? I want to save that. Okay, so whenever I produce an e-banking file from that bank account, it will produce it in that format for me, okay? So um, let's quickly change one of the suppliers we've got to e-banking. Set up e-banking. Have they got anything outstanding on their account? Okay, so let's create a payment run for them. Uh, okay, let's do that again and change the due date. I just don't think there's any transactions that are due yet. So if I go next, suddenly they appear, which just obviously proves that it does work. Okay. All right. So what I'm doing here is I'm saying I want to pay that bill there, and I want to also take that credit note there as well. Okay. So I'll say next, fine, done. Now I'm going to go into process payment, and I'm going to pick the banking one, and there it is. Okay. So I'm going to say right, I want to pay those, process that payment run. It then lists all the payments it's going to do, and then it's going to say, do you want to create the actual remittance in the file? Okay, so it's actually telling me where it's putting it. Do I want to view the file? I'm going to say no. Yeah, and that's it. And then I can process and print. So now I'll print off the actual remittances, and I've actually produced a file that I can actually pick up in my bank software and actually import to it. Okay. Oops. Okay, so simply that is the different ways you can cope with, paying people. So you can say, right, these are all the suppliers I want to pay, and then when you actually go to process, this is the different, because it may be that some you pay by check, some you pay by check and remittance, some you pay by e-banking. You obviously can deal with them all in one while you're deciding who to pay, and then split them up when you actually kind of are processing the actual types of payment. All right, batch printing, document printing we've already discussed. It's very similar to the customer. So if you wanted to batch print purchase orders rather than just kind of do a purchase order and then print the order individually, but you can do that. You can do either, and you can mix and match. Okay, so the next thing here is create drop shipments. Okay, so just go into customer for a second, create an order. Okay, let's pick a few items, like that one, that one. What we'll say is one of those each, but we're going to tick the drop ship flag. Okay, say save and close. Then we're going to go back into supplier, then we go create drop shipments, and it's actually listed up all the items we need to drop ship. So it's obviously picked those two that we've just created now. There's no supplier on that one, so I would need to pick a supplier, okay, to make that work. It's automatically put the quantity to order in, the expected price, obviously you can override those. And if I click create drop shipments, it will create the purchase orders. It'll create two separate purchase orders for those two, because they're two separate suppliers. And if I say yes, I want to view them, it'll produce the purchase orders. Okay, and then I could obviously print them. If I didn't print them while I was in there, I could actually print the purchase orders in a batch. Okay, so you can see there's my two drop ship orders. And the reason you can identify them, okay, is that you can actually see the sales order number, drop ship, and the warehouse it was going to. Okay. 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 Right. So that's drop shipments. Okay. We also have special order, and so these are for items that you identify that you don't really want to stock because you can get them quite quick. It may be that they're too big, they're too heavy, they're too expensive, or whatever. And so, drop ship is where you send from your supplier to your customer. Okay. Special order is when you order them from your supplier to come into your warehouse to sell out. Yeah, an auto generate purchase order routine. This is to kind of keep your stock levels up and obviously make sure you can order to fulfill your sales orders and keep enough stock. So auto generate purchase order routine. We can use sales trends or reorder points. And if I use sales trends, how far back do you want me to go to look at those sales trends? So I say, right, over the last month, look at the sales trends. Okay, look at the average number of daily sales for each item over the last month. Then it's saying, how much stock do you want to stock? Well, I'm saying here that I want to stock a month's stock at least. Okay, but it may be that you want to kind of stock 1 day stock or 1 week stock. It's up to you. Then it's saying, which warehouses do you want to order for? Okay. Then it's saying which suppliers do you want to use, just in case you're on hold with some, or you don't want to use some, and you're over the credit limit or whatever. Okay, so, and then it produces a list. Let me just get rid of the extension warehouse here. So then it produces a list of all the items we need to order. The main supplier dropped in, yeah, the quantity to order and the usual sell price, which you can obviously change on every item line, and you can tick which ones you want to order. Okay, so it's just told me there when I try to tick that one, I've got to specify a supplier. Okay, now, if I double click on here, okay, it'll actually tell me how it made it up. So it's telling me to order 1,281 of them. Okay, so it's saying the reorder point's 3, the potential stock is minus 1,001. So that means in stock minus committed, plus what's on purchase order already, plus what's in transit to us from other warehouses, plus what's on back order. So minus what's on back order means that we need that amount just to fulfill our sales orders. Okay, daily sales are running at 3. The lead time is 0. Okay, so obviously if I put a lead time in there, let's say 7 days, it would go 3 times 7, 21. So we need to stock 21 just to just to make sure we've got enough to sell. Then it's saying the reorder point's 3, the days to stock is 30, because obviously at the beginning we put we wanted to stock for a month. So it's saying 3 times 30 is 90. Add that to the original amount. That's what gave us the 1,281. Now in the advanced version, we're going to use what's called a requirements plan. So what it'll actually do, as well as this, is look at all the due dates on the purchase orders, the sales orders, and the outstanding stock quantities, and it'll actually predict when we need to order. So this is the existing routine in standard is great for those people that need to know what do I need to order now to fulfill my sales orders and make sure I've got enough stock to carry on selling. Okay, the advanced requirements plan version is for those kind of people that take orders and they're going to ship over time. Or they have to take orders that are coming in the next month or so to ship out. Okay, so again, you just say okay, and it will create those purchase orders for you. Void payment is if you kind of do a payment, you need to void it, so you can write another one or whatever. You get a money back off a supplier. Let's say they've had a credit outstanding for a while, so you get money off a supplier. So these are unusual transactions, but obviously you've got to be able to deal with them. And confirm interest stat is exactly the same as the customer that they've already been through. And this works on GRNs. Okay, so if I kind of specify a date range, hopefully I've got some in here. Okay, so I've got one. So I've got a GRN. So interest stats are, you have to, if you turn over a certain amount from importing or exporting, you have to fill out an interest stat form. And the kind of detail on here is for each item that you bring in, you have to specify a commodity code, the mode of transport, and how it actually got here. So what this does is it helps you fill out all this information, because against that stock code there, obviously we've not kept a commodity code, but we could do. And supplementary units, the weight, so it's gone the quantity times the weight to give us the weight. And this will actually produce the interest stat in the file format, yeah, that you can just upload it to the website. Okay. All right, so we have dashboards. We've got reports. We can obviously, you can see the reports, you can preview them. We've got report writer. We've also got business intelligence. So you can see what's delivery performance. Are your suppliers actually delivering to you on time? So you've got due dates on purchase order item lines, and you could drill down on those. Order intake, so what you're saying, are you ordering the same amounts that you used to order, or has it changed in a big way? And overdue purchase order item lines. So what item lines are overdue? If it was amber, it's nearly due. If it's red, then they're overdue. And you can expand any of these that you want to see them in more detail, drill down on them. Okay, so that really is the supplier module, very, very quickly and very simply. Okay, thank you very much.